Hey everybody, Chris here, and in this video, I'm going to show you 2 tips for creating smooth motion graphics in Adobe Premiere. These are things I often use in my edits, not just for text like you just saw, but I'm also often adding full screen websites or screen recordings to my videos, zooming in on a particular action, and then having it animate away. And all of this looks just a bit more professional with these tricks applied. Let's get started. Okay, before we get started, let's take a look at what we'll be creating. Here's a quick preview. Okay, as you can see, we have 2 text layers on top of a simple white background. This is the finished timeline, and here I have a duplicate of that with no animation. So this is what we're going to start working from. Now, if you're familiar with animating at all within Premiere, you're probably used to setting keyframes, changing the position, adjusting it, and this is how you might animate something on. But this is where the first tip comes into play, because we're not going to do any of this in the Vector Motion tab here in our Effects Controls panel. Instead, we're going to go to the Effects panel and search for Transform. Then we're going to add this effect to both of our text layers here. This will be important for tip 2 later on. Now, I'm going to animate this on like we saw in our preview, where smooth comes in from the left and then leaves on the right, and the graphics text comes in from the right and leaves to the left. To start, I'm going to go to frame 0, and then I'm going to hold Shift and press the forward arrow 3 times to go 15 frames into our timeline here. Then I'm going to select the smooth layer, and I'm going to add a keyframe to the position value under the transform effect. Then I'm going to select the graphics text layer and do the same thing. Now I'll hold Shift and press the back arrow twice to go back 10 frames. With the smooth text layer selected again, I'm going to hold Shift and then click and drag on this position value until it goes off the left side of the frame. You'll see that it created a new keyframe here once I change the value. With the playhead in the same spot here, I'm going to click on this graphics text layer, and I'm going to do the same thing, but just drag the graphics text off the right side of the screen. Now, if we do a quick preview, you'll see we have the beginning of our animation, but it still looks quite choppy. So, we're going to continue with our animation. We're going to let it play a little bit. And at this point, I want to have it start to animate out. So I'm going to select the smooth text layer, and I'm going to add a keyframe here. Now this keyframe value is the same as the one before it. If you ever change the values, Premiere will automatically create a new keyframe. But if you want to add a keyframe with the same value as the previous one, you need to activate this little icon here. I'm going to do this on the graphics text layer as well. And then I'm going to hold Shift and click the forward arrow twice to jump 10 frames ahead. Now I'm going to continue our animation. So on our smooth text layer, we're going to move it off screen to the right. So again, I'm going to hold Shift and then I'm going to click and drag this position value until smooth leaves the screen. Likewise, on the graphics layer, I'm going to hold Shift, click and drag left until it's off screen. So now things are looking like this. Okay, we've got a lot of animation going on, but it's not quite smooth. The first tip that I have has to do with the keyframes and smoothing out the motion that we've created here. To do this, we're going to go to the first keyframe, and in this moment, before this keyframe, the text is in a static position. It's only at this keyframe that it starts to move. So we want to right-click this keyframe, scroll down to Temporal Interpolation, and choose Ease Out. This graphic is going to ease out of a resting position, and then we want to have it ease in to its new resting position. This is the motion, so it's easing out and then easing in. Now it's static again, and so once again, we want to have it ease out of this static position and then ease in to the new static position. Now that we've adjusted these keyframes on the smooth text layer, let's compare how this animation up here looks with the animation on graphics. Now keep in mind, the keyframes are all located in the same position. We've just adjusted these easing properties. Take a look. It's a little hard to see, but smooth comes in a little bit more smoothly. And we can make this look even nicer if we expand this arrow here, and you'll see we have some graphs here now related to our keyframes. What I like to do is on my second keyframe here, grab this handle and move it a little bit to the left. You'll see how that changes this velocity graph. I'm also going to do it to this one in kind of the reverse. Now let's take a look at how this looks. This really helps smooth out that animation as it comes into its resting position and eases out of its resting position. Let's apply these same keyframe changes to the graphics layer. I'm going to select the graphics layer, and then I'm going to use this arrow to go back to the first keyframe. I'm going to right-click, ease out, right-click, ease in, ease out, and ease in. I'm going to expand this section, and again I'm going to give these middle keyframes a little bit more of a curve so that it eases into this position and it eases out of this position. It's looking pretty good so far, but now we're ready for the final touch, and that's tip number 2. The reason why we're using the transform effect and not vector motion is because it has this option right here that says use composition shutter angle. We want to uncheck this option, and then we want to type in a value here. Most people will recommend typing in a value of 180, and let's see what that does. We're on the graphics text layer now, and as you can see, before we even play it, this layer has motion blur to it, and our smooth text layer doesn't. I personally find 180 looks a little bit too extreme, so I often use 120. Let's make sure to activate this for our smooth text layer as well. Let's take a final look to see how things turned out. There you have it. Those are 2 tricks that I wish I knew when I first started editing in Premiere. I hope you can put them to use, and I'll see you next time.